Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I am super excited to get to know my guest today because I don't know much about her. Brandy, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for spending your evening with me and going to share your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I actually don't watch podcasts. You're the only podcast I have ever watched. So it's a compliment. And honestly, there hasn't been one guest that I didn't learn something from. So I appreciate what you do. Thank you for it.
Well, I appreciate those very kind words. I created this podcast to get to know people, and it became something that bigger, better than I ever imagined. And now I've gotten to know so many people. I think I'm on episode 60. So I've gotten to know a lot of great people, and I continue to. And so every day is a treat. So I really appreciate, and I appreciate anybody that listens to it. So thank you for sharing that. That was very kind of you.
No problem.
Okay. So where in the world are you coming from?
So I am in Charleston, South Carolina. And it's hot. It's 100 degrees usually over the summer. It's humid, hot. We just have to get used to it. And so I've been here since 2006. But before that, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Yeah. So you've been in the South.
Correct.
Southeast, right? I'm good to getting my John. I'm a California girl, and we're not always the brightest when it comes to July. At least I'm not. So I have been to South Carolina. I have been to Georgia, Atlanta once for each of those, and they were a long time ago. So but I do know that South Carolina is very pretty from what I remember. It's a beautiful place. Yeah,
it is. And where I live is below sea level. It floods a lot. We get the hurricanes. I had a storm destroy my house last summer. Seriously, had to get a new roof, new windows, everything, trees down. But I still think it's worth the risk living here. So
that was going to be my next question. It was like, then why do people live there if you have to deal with the elements like that? What is the reason? It's because of the people, the location. What is it for you?
Well, for me, I would not live here, to be honest. I would be out west in Colorado or something. I actually have two sons in Colorado. I love the mountains and all that. But we moved here for me to go to graduate school at MUSC. Okay. And that was in 2006. And I never went because we just had more kids and, all that kind of stuff. But the beach, fishing, the communities, there's always something going on outdoors. Mm-hmm. Everybody is a good large portion of the community is into being active, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I do like warm weather. I like the cold. I've gone to Colorado many times. I've been to Connecticut, skiing and all that. Yeah. But I haven't lived it.
Right.
Fully.
Yeah.
So
I can totally
I'll like
relate
it.
to that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So it doesn't get cold in the winter there.
It feels cold to me, but no, it's really like if it gets 30 degrees. If there is a threat of it going below freezing, they shut the schools down.
Okay, I love that. All right. So I can relate. Being in California, it's I get cold, but it's not the same cold as everybody else's cold, for sure. For sure. Okay, so let's start off by share with me your nursing school story. Like, how did you decide to become a nurse? I love these stories because every story is different, but they're all very similar.
Yes. So when I was in high school, I did not know what I wanted to do. I thought law school. I thought going to South Carolina or Savannah College of Art and Design. I thought about something in healthcare. Wasn't really sure. So I just started school, got a full scholarship. It was all women's college.
Okay.
And I decided that I didn't like an all women's college. So so after 2 years, I left, went to a bigger school. It was just, of course, I wasn't thinking. I lost my scholarship. I had to work to pay for my school, and it got too hard. So I wanted straight A's. So I said, let me just go into the military. And my plan was to never get married, have kids, be a general in the military. I mean, and I was on the track, like I was going there. I was an Apache crew chief in the military, so that was a lot of fun. Taught riflery in the military, and then got a green to gold scholarship. They sent me back, went back to school for nursing. That's where I chose nursing because I wanted to go to CRNA school, and I was going to do that through the military. And then that's when I met my husband, and we decided to have kids. And then I didn't want to be in the military where I was going to be deployed. And then I waited a few years till they were old enough. Went back to school to finish nursing. Went back to the same women's college. Oh, right?
Yeah.
Loved it. Graduated, and then that was in 2004. They did not allow new grads in the ICUs, and I was told time and time again, they don't take new grads. They don't take new grads. Well, at time, they didn't have hospitals on lockdown like they were. I would just walk in, find the manager. Hey, I want to work here. So I had 3 ICU job offers, started working at Emlee in Atlanta, and then came to South Carolina 2 years later in the pediatric cardiac surgery ICU, got on the ECMO team, loved it. Then I was helping with adult ECMO too, because the type of equipment that we used for children and adults was different. It was right when we started, upgrading equipment with new technologies. And then I was on like the extracorporeal life support organizations, committees to set the world standards of care, like that level. Loved it.
Yeah.
And then did that for probably 12 years. Then went into travel nursing for 8 years. And that's when I learned all about all the different types of ICU care, neuro ICU, just medical. I really don't, that's my least favorite, but I'm more of a surgery kind of person. And then was an adjunct instructor. I got my Six Sigma Green Belt certification, started with some process improvement type of projects, and then started expert witnessing in 2017. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, all right. Let's unpack this a little bit. So in the military, you wanted to go there. You said something about doing your CRNA. Now, when did that? Obviously, you didn't go down that road, but you went into critical care. When did that decision change?
So I was a first-time parent. I have 5 kids. So I had my first 2 kids. I thought when they are out of elementary school, then they won't need me as much, right? And that's why we moved here to South Carolina. I mean, there wasn't if I get into MUSC, I was going to get in there. Like there was just no other option, or I wouldn't have done it. But they still needed me even through high school. So then just decided to have more kids, and I'm a career person. I can go off the tangent and just career all over the place. But I had to make myself focus on family because that is my priority. It's easy for me to do career stuff. I think it's a little harder to be a full-time parent.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think that those that end up in entrepreneurship are natural born, career people. And it's very easy. I can relate to this so much because I don't have as many children, but making those decisions between career and, spending time with your kids. I know that I left nursing for a few years when my kids were in middle school for a reason. I had built a business, but I also wanted to make sure that I was home for them during middle school, even though I could have done both, had my hands and everything. The priority was the kids at that time. And then now that they're adults and, one of them has moved back into me while she goes to nursing school. I've been an empty nester and I've been able to work, but she's home. So I found myself in this balancing again, and she's 21 years old, and I'm like, but she's my kid, but I could sit here and work all day like I was, so I get that whole juggle on career and children, and there's clearly nothing wrong with it. Okay, so when you were having children, were you working full time as a nurse or part time?
I worked weekend option, and it's funny because you think it works at the time, right? Mm-hmm. But it really didn't. It really, looking back, it didn't work. I was missing all the fun time. I was like the drill sergeant. I was the coach. I was the educational leader. I was everything, keeping them in check during the week. And I missed a lot of that fun bonding time where they're going out in the boat. And once you get set in that, it's hard to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So when I would come across people that were working weekends, I would kind of check in like, hey, what's your plan for weekends? And I would just try to be like, really consider, because you think you're doing okay at the time, but really, you have to look outside what you're experiencing in the moment and understand that, what's the big picture. But I didn't want childcare or anything. So, I mean, it was definitely, I think now that I've had more kids, I think I should have had somebody 2 days a week take care of them while I was working, because I think it would have benefited them and it would have benefited me too,
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
I see that a lot too with nurses that work night shift. That the reason they work night shift is so that they can take care of their kids, during the day and not have childcare. But I will tell you, I could have never done it. I don't know how functioning I could be, for my children if I worked night shift and then did.
Right.
So many people do it. And I guess that is the wonderful thing about nursing, is that there are so many options for whatever you need at the time. You seek it out and you pursue it and then you make it work. So, there is no cookie cutter answer with nursing. There's, it's not just one specialty. It's not just one shift. You can really kind of make it whatever you want to make it. So I get that, like, looking back in hindsight, what you would change, I would change that I wouldn't have let my CNOR lapse because I thought I'd never go back into nursing. I did.
So it was hard to get back.
Yes, I had to take the test 15 years later, and it was harder 15 years later. So I always, just like you tell people, make sure you think about, it's the same thing. Whatever you do, don't ever let your CNR lapse, no matter what. Even if you think you're not going to go back into the OR, just keep it. Because you just never know. So there's a lot of that hindsight, which actually makes us great in what we do now, clearly.
Right.
Because we've learned a lot of lessons. Okay, so when you were working, because you were working in critical care?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were part of a lot of projects, like leadership projects, right? Did you go into management or education?
No, absolutely not. Never.
Okay.
No.
Wow.
I never wanted to do that. Absolutely not. No, I just loved patient care so much. I loved educating other nurses, precepting them, teaching them. It was, my passion was CV surgery, ECMO. I just couldn't break away from that. I don't know. I just never really wanted to. And I don't want to work 9 to 5. No, thank you.
Yeah. No. I get that. And the great thing about that is that you still manage to be a leader in your field. It's interesting because when you're a young nurse, you think leadership, you think management. But in your case, you were a leader and you were able to precept and you were able to educate, So again, I'm like trying to sell the nursing profession because there are just so many ways it's going to cap.
Yeah.
Okay, so you worked in how many years did you work in critical care before you went to travel?
I feel like it was about 12, 13 years.
12, 13.
Very uncomfortable too. Very, very uncomfortable for me to switch. Yeah.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Oh, yeah. I was having chest pain my first day and everything. She's like, where is everything? I need to know. I didn't realize that I didn't fly by the seat of my pants very well outside of my home, basically, my home unit.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did okay. It was just like, I was like, whoa, where's the code bell? Who do I call? Who's the person in charge? Where are these supplies? What if I can't? I know it had to be annoying. What if I can't get this? Who's the next person? Like, and I would just write it all down. But guess what? Over all that time, over the 8 years, I could just fly in and be like, what do you need me to do? Like, I'm here to support you. And so I learned how to be a travel nurse from a travel nurse we had when I was a permanent nurse. We had to change her assignment a lot. She was, we had admissions. We can't have a travel nurse taking an admission, and I would have to switch her assignments all the time. And she would just be like, okay. And then I pulled her aside one day. I was like, how are you okay with this? I've never met a nurse that was okay with this. And she told me her whole rationale for what her role as a travel nurse was. And I don't know if I would have realized that had I not sat with her and asked her how is she different than every other nurse I've ever met in my unit, right?
Yeah.
So
what kind of things did she say? I'm curious because I think that's really interesting information.
Right. So she wasn't the nurse that would say, we used to do that here at my place, right? She would just say, what can I do to help this morning? How can I help you? She was really intelligent, but she didn't lead with that. So I trusted her over time once I saw how competent she was.
Right.
And then I even went back later and thanked her for teaching me how to be a travel nurse because I think it's important to let people know how they impact your career.
Yeah, I think that's very valuable information. Not that a lot of us, the listeners, most listeners to this podcast have kind of gone through that already. They're not new at nursing. They're new at, legal nursing. But I also think that I think that it's an important fact because there are some of us that are still, practicing. And we were talking about this before we went live here, that I had picked up privileges at another hospital. I was never a travel nurse. I had moved positions at times, but the first case I do, it is that like, oh wow, okay, where is everything? So I love the fact that you said that she said, what can I do to help you and be flexible? And that's exactly what I did this week in my first day somewhere else. It was like, but I was guilty of doing, well, we do it this way.
Right.
And that's that's interesting. I love the fact that you shared that because there is something about that if someone came to my home base and said that,
And I was not flexible though before.
Right.
People were like, if I started walking toward the room, I didn't realize that they were like intimidated by me. Like, oh no, you're conspiracy. Is everything okay? Like, and I would just be like, hey, have you noticed this or whatever? Or you might want to ask the doctor about this. I was always just kind of like behind the scenes helping them. But like, I'm such a safety net that if I saw something unsafe going on, I would be, I honestly, as a traveler, I'm like that too. I'm just a little bit more passive about it. Like, just what's going on in here,
I can relate to this conversation so much. The timing of this is pretty epic because I'm the same way in my home base. I am like very rigid, very much like this is how it is supposed to be done. And, you show up in somebody else's home and you gotta sit back a little bit and, watch and observe.
Yeah.
And be a little bit passive. And that's exactly
I know.
what I did. It was
actually got called into manager's office several times where I worked for 10 years. And they'd be like, Brandy, you have to stay out of people's rooms, and I was like, so if I walk by, I remember this conversation vividly because it was ridiculous. So if I walk by, I see blood dripping into the floor. Don't go in there. He was like, no. And I was like, so if I walk by there in VTAC, don't get the code card, nothing. And he was like, yeah, just leave it. And I was like, then you need to fire me today because I will never do that. And it had to do with a new ECMO patient. With the very first time the ECMO came out with a centrifuge pump instead of a roller head pump, and the ECMO team that I was on, I was the only adult nurse on the ECMO team. They were like, we can't manage this patient. We don't know this pump. And I was like, oh, good thing I know this pump from, the support we do without the oxygenator in line. And then I know this old pump with the, so that's how I started taking over education and stuff. And that's where he was they kept saying, don't you have a patient? And I was like, oh, no, don't worry about it. My patient's good. Like, I thought they were concerned about me. But they were basically saying,
get out.
Yeah. But everything was wrong and it was dangerous and I wasn't.
Yeah.
No. And those nurses came back later and said, I'm sorry. I thought I thought it was an ego thing, but I realized you were concerned for the patient. And one of them actually went on to be a cardiac surgeon. So that's the one.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. So see, you were doing the right thing. Yeah. You were doing the right thing. I know this with OR nursing and patient positioning, and we're very particular where I work because I have something to do with it. And then you go somewhere else and I'm not quite as particular, and you go, but and then it's this interesting line between doing the right thing and then not stepping on anyone's toes because you want to be invited back, obviously.
Right.
But you have to realize who your audience is. I think that's a big thing. So that's funny. I don't think we've talked about this kind of thing on here, but I know that there are a lot of people that can relate because there are a lot of my podcast guests have done travel nursing. I've always found that it's fascinating. I just never did it. I think I probably was too afraid of it. And then same thing. Then I had kids and it just didn't fit the schedule. So now this is my little version of traveling down the street.
Yes. That's how I started. I went like an hour away, then 2 hours away.
Yeah. So in hindsight, did you love the travel experience?
Yes, I loved it. I tried to go back to my permanent job that I had. It was not the same.
Wow.
I couldn't do it. I was like, we're done here.
Wow, interesting, because you just fell in love with the traveling. What about it did you love so much?
About the travel?
Yeah.
I think I have a gypsy spirit in general. Like, I've moved around a lot in childhood and things. And so I think that makes me comfortable. It keeps me stimulated. I love meeting new people, going to new areas. I love the challenge of fitting into different situations where I had the knowledge base that I felt comfortable with to be able to know when to call for help or when something's going awry. I liked that challenge and learning different things. Like I interviewed for a neuro ICU and I was like, guys, I don't want to do neuro stuff. Put me in the cardiac unit. And they're like, no, we'll teach you. You'll be fine. And the neuro intensivist taught me for 6 months, rounding an hour every day on every patient. He was educating his nurse practitioners and PAs to be more in line with what he would think. And then eventually, once they were up to par, he would then quiz me because I came at it as a traveler like, hey guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I didn't come in there acting like I knew what I was doing. I was like, hey, I'm a heart nurse, not a neuro nurse, right? And so I think they were really receptive because of that too. And they knew I had experience, and they knew that I'm not an expert in neuro stuff, at that time. So
and always when you're willing to learn, I mean, you take any sort of, you take a young nurse and they're willing to learn. Those are the people that you're more receptive to teach anyway. So you were probably the perfect student, someone that really wanted to learn and fight it or didn't seem uninterested. So I'm sure that helped. Yeah. Okay. So, and naturally the knowledge that you gained from working at different facilities, I'm guessing, kind of led you into this legal space. What did that look like for you? How did you get involved in this?
Well, it started out by somebody coming to me asking me, one of my peers was like, you're an expert in cardiac surgery. I was like, absolutely I am. Like, I'm not going to deny that. So they asked me to take a defense case, and I did. And that's where I was just like, it wasn't something that interested me at all. And once I went through and I dug out the details to show that these nurses did not do anything wrong, and I could see exactly what occurred, and it was a provider issue, not a nursing issue. That's where I got the bug. And then I sat there for 2 years, but I really don't know the law. Right. I need to learn more, they're not going to so I still did more expert witnessing stuff, but I took a course, very expensive course. And then I still felt like, and finally I just said, enough of this. It's fine. I know what I'm doing. I don't have to be an expert on the law. That's not my role. And so then once I got over that, really, it was about 2 years ago where I started really focusing on the legal nurse consulting part of it. And then to the point where it was my only source of income for 6 months. I had a big life change where I had to go back to work for a little bit, but we're over that now. So I think I'll be able to go back to giving 100% attention to the business side of things. But that's kind of but I still have that little inkling of I want to still be at the bedside, but I feel forced out because of the state of nursing. It's not the same in California as it is over here. We have nobody helping regulate, our staffing, and taking 3 CVICU patients is absolutely unsafe. And that's where I drew the line when I tried to go back, So
it's such a sad, it's a sad state of affairs, to be forced out. It was something that you love to do, but it's just like you said, it's just not safe. And why would you put yourself in that position? So when you decided to go into, push this a little bit further, it's funny because there are lots of stories like that where someone happened to reach out to them and say, here, I've got this. Can you take a look at it? And not knowing anything about legal nursing, and then deciding after that first case going, okay, this, I could do this. When you decided a couple years ago to go into it, did you understand the business side of it? Had you ever learned business? Were you ever fascinated with business? I think because the reason I ask that is because naturally nurses don't study business or marketing or how to get their name out. What was that like for you? Was it something that you were excited to learn, or you already knew?
I think I was waiting for a chance to re-engage with a business because the person I was married to and we did have a couple of businesses. I wrote the business plan, did the quarterly financials, loved it, did all the OSHA qualifications and met all the standards and all that kind of stuff. I didn't like the selling piece. I didn't like the marketing piece of it. Right. So I already had all of that. And one great resource I can say that has really helped me is using SCORE. It's retired executives that volunteer their time to help entrepreneurs. And it's in every state. You can find a chapter. You meet up with somebody. I mean, these people, you wouldn't believe their experiences, like CEOs at Apple or whatever, kind of thing, depending on your area.
Wow, I've never even heard of that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So if you just go to score.org, that is, you tie in, and these people, you don't pay them or anything. They really just want to help others because of their vast knowledge. They're retired, but they still want something to do and give back.
What a great resource. That's a really great resource. I love hearing that. In fact, I think I'm going to pass that along to my significant other who is facing retirement right now. Going through all of that, with his expertise and finding what's next in life. And, I'm too young to retire. I've been doing this forever, and I had never even heard of something like that. So that's good to know. Thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, no problem.
And for those legal nurses out there that are terrified of starting a business, that's really great to hear that there's even that resource out there.
Yeah. And if they sign up, it's free. They give you Zoom calls. You can rewatch them. Things like taxes, information on, the people that are doing a lot of subcontracting and how that affects their taxes, and like how to manage all that. And they're live with questions you can ask, down to marketing, all this kind of stuff. So they have really great courses too.
That's great. That's great to hear. Okay. So did you ever end up loving that side of the business? This is the marketing side?
Now I am. Yes. Okay. Now I am. So I'm learning all about technology and, automating my workflow and all this kind of stuff. The problem is that I also work as a virtual nurse. And I also have children full time, and then I'm also trying to maintain my clientele right now. I built them up, and then I kind of had them in this holding pattern for a year where I was just maintaining. I wasn't increasing my business. I couldn't handle any more business at that time. And so over the past 2 months, I've been able to accommodate more business, and that's fine. But it gave me that time to really dive into what is best marketing practice for me, right? Yeah. So it doesn't need to be a cookie cutter thing, So I'm learning some tools to get into that more in the way that I want to, which would be, I feel like, teaching. And I mentor nurses that are wanting to get into legal nurse consulting. I don't charge anything. I just feel like we get some, because I score, they're mentoring me, let me pay it forward, So I think and honestly, just having interactions and conversations and Zoom calls with people that I find interesting, or experts or other LNCs. I have at least 3 meetings a week. It felt really odd at first. Somebody asked me for a meeting, and I thought, well, this is odd, but okay. I feel uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it. Yeah. So that's another thing that I would recommend is do the thing that you fear and just get it done and do it.
Totally. I totally agree with this. That is really the only way I have excelled in anything. It's really been getting past that level of fear and doing it anyways. I mean, this podcast is the perfect example of it. I had done podcasts in the past, totally different environment, totally different topic, but I knew I could do it. However, I didn't know anyone, not one person in the legal nurse consulting world. And I just had to get past the fear and ask and reach out to people. And here we are, 60 episodes later.
Wow.
And it was the fear of, rejection, the fear of nobody knowing who the heck I was, and also the fear of gaining their trust. I know for me, it was like, oh, of course you can trust me. My intentions are, pure, but how do they know that? And so there was that fear of like, how do I make sure that they understand that they're safe and trust me? But you know what? I just did it. And here we are. So yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like just getting past that fear. And I think it goes, a lot of nurses that are getting started in this business. I see this because I get messages and from the podcast that it's like taking that first step. What do I do? Take that first step. It's just take the first step, whatever that step is for you. Take a step. It's like you said, it's not a cookie cutter answer for marketing. It's not a cookie cutter answer for legal nurse consulting. It's whatever sounds right to you at that time is my advice, because that's how I've always done it. And you may look back in hindsight and go, well, maybe I shouldn't have taken that course, but what I did get out of it was X, Y, and Z. You can't win them all, but if you didn't take the leap, you would have never gotten started. So
right.
I love the fact that you said that. Okay. Yeah. So you're juggling everything still. What do you see your business looking like? What do you see your legal nurse consulting business looking like in the future? Do you see yourself still working as a virtual nurse? Do you see yourself working this being your sole income, sitting on a beach. I don't know. I like to it's always fun to look at the future, and whether it comes to fruition, so be it.
Yeah. I love my job as a virtual nurse. It's a new company. They're growing. We work from home. Amazing culture. I don't think that I'll do that for too long. But I don't see where I would say I'm done with it either.
Yeah.
because I'm still interacting with patients. I enjoy it. There's safety issues. I get cases where there's issues at discharge. So like I stop, like this is a hard stop. This patient cannot discharge until ABC is done or whatever. And then helping on the admission side. These are the things that are important for us to know and notify people about because we have the time to do it because they're our only patient. If you're a bedside nurse, you don't have time to ask the questions to these details. So I can't say for that. But I do plan on, I am mentoring a couple of nurses. I guess I'm a control freak. So I am mentoring a couple where we go over cases together. They learn different ways. So doing that to eventually be able to take some cases for me independently. So I do see myself growing this business, but I also have found different opportunities within this business. Like expert witness matching. I'm actually one of my sons is a software engineer, so he's helping me get it together where you could just I'm thinking a subscription based thing, pretty cheap every month. You just log in and say, I need an expert witness for this, and then AI says, oh, here's 3 experts.
Right.
Which one would you like to contact? Would you want me to draft you an email? So I'm working on all that, and then also putting together what I'm learning is workflow improvement processes because these tools are very, very, very complicated. They sell them like they're not, but they are complicated. And so if I could package together some tool to help other legal nurses not get caught up in the busy work and just be able to focus on the meat of the job, right? I think that would be beneficial too. So I'm kind of working on those two things. I am creative, and I think it usually benefits businesses in some ways. So I'm like, well, let me benefit my own business.
Yeah. I can totally relate. I am a visionary by trade, sometimes to a fault. Sometimes we call those squirrels that we
Yes. Oh, there are times I'm like, this. I'm like, no, I have 2 things I'm working on. I need to focus.
Yeah. Lots of these books behind me can be considered that swirling moments where I have this great big idea that will help everyone. And then it's like, just bring it down a notch. So for me, I could relate. But I love that for you. I love that your mind is always working. I love the fact that I stumped you on what you picture your life to be like, because it's this ever changing thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. To that, there is no wrong answer. That's what I probably should have said.
And that is a real thing I am struggling with. I actually was telling my children, I was like, I just don't know where I want to be in 20 years. Like, we joke around, one kid, we're going to live together forever. And I'm like, I think I'll just go with that plan. That sounds fun.
Right. No, I was asked that once in a previous business many years ago, and it totally took me by surprise, the question, and I was nervous, and I said this thing, and 5 years later that thing happened, and so I was like, whoa, wow, I shocked myself. And so I like to ask that question because it just kind of, even though there's no answer, and nowadays for me and like you, where I don't know what that looks like, it's a fun question to just kind of think about. So that's why I asked it.
I will have an answer one day. It's just now I know there's so many different things going on. I just need to get my bearings for a minute, and that's honest. So
yeah. I love that. And guess what? That's relatable because so many people that are listening to this can relate to that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So we could talk all night, but we're not going to. So what I would like you to share is where people can find you. And I know a lot of people are looking for people to mentor them. So just where they can find you. And my guess is you'll have messages in your inbox. So be careful, beware. But yeah, where can they find you?
So I have a website, thernconsultant.com, and my email is just brandy@thernconsultant.com. And then on LinkedIn, I'm under Nurse Brandy. And I do that for a reason because I also do expert witnessing and I want to make it harder to find. I'm sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair enough. Absolutely.
So that's where I'm at.
Okay, perfect. And that information will be in the show notes so people can quickly click on that and find you. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story and getting to know you. I'm really happy that I got to know you more. And now I can put your face with the name on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And I look forward to people reaching out to you and connecting and relating to your story. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at anna.gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.